Sandman in this universe has a human form, but he can manipulate sand, turn into sand, and when he gets around other sand, he can make sand basically an extension of himself to where he basically becomes a giant sand being citywide threat. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video about the PS5 version of Sandman from Insomniac. Oh boy. Just like in the comics, Sandman's one of them villains. Even in this video game universe, he's one of those characters I honestly don't think Spider-Man can beat him in a straight fist fight without using weaknesses and stuff. I mean, it's kind of hard to outmuscle somebody made out of sand. Can't really land a physical blow on somebody like this. You know what I'm saying? Got to use prep time. You got to use weaknesses. You got to use water. You got to use lightning. Fighting him and overpowering him in a fist fight, it just seems like it's not possible really for Spider-Man. Like, it was literally stated by Spider-Man Peter Parker himself that water tank is our only shot at fighting Sandman. So it lets you know that in brute power, they got to use weaknesses against this guy. His body's made of sand. What are you supposed to do? Yo, Kraven in this video game universe was a menace. I mean, him and his hunters found a chemical that can actually knock out Sandman. Notice how they had to find a chemical stated here. Like, what kind of chemical did they use? Like, was it water? Like, was it electricity? Like, what did they use against him? Like, they never said it in the game, I don't think. But let's be honest, guys. If Sandman didn't have no weakness, what the heck was Kraven going to do to him? Like, imagine if he didn't have elemental weaknesses that countered sand. Like, in brute strength, what they going to box it out with Sandman? Like, you see what I'm saying? He has to have these weaknesses. He's kind of too overpowered. It was hard for him to stay awake after this chemical. So Kraven definitely had some prep time researching him to knock out freaking Sandman. Spider-Man even went as far as saying it's not easy to knock out Sandman. Like, I really want to know what chemical they use, because if it's not lightning and water, what the heck did they use? No, it's not my opinion. It's confirmed. Spider-Man literally theorized that they had to read up on Marko to know what to do to have weapons for him. So, Sandman does exist in Insomniac's video game universe. There's not much lore to go off of. All we got is what we visually see, and we see that he can do similar stuff like his comic book self, fighting two Spider-Man becoming building size and such. Let's get into it, though. See, here's the thing. It was an off-screen thing, but off-screen, this universe version of Spider-Man has fought Sandman in the past. Spider-Man himself confirmed they fought in the past in the new game, so yeah. Apparently, Sandman got contained in a vial. So right off gate, the fact that he can be contained in a vial, and we saw how big Sandman can get, like I literally a couple seconds ago, how he can get big as buildings. So this kind of gives me an idea of where the games want him to be when it comes to powers. They kind of make it seem like he's similar to his comic self. The fact that he can be contained in a vial kind of reminds me of this comic in the main continuity about how Sandman works. As much as it may seem, there's like a single grain, like the way this comic depicts him, that has his conscience, his heart, and soul. And if you isolate that one, you can kind of contain him. This video game version of him seems to be following this same route.
Still not sure if opening this would set the Sandman free, but I'm in no hurry to find out.
Well, apparently he got free in a new game, you know. So, like, for example, Sandman's one of them people that's tough to fight. Like, if his real consciousness is in a single grain of sand, you don't know which part of him that could murder him, really. Like, you could blow off this part, literally, but his soul of his consciousness could be right here or something, so he can just grow this crap back. Like, you didn't even blow up his head, because all of this is really just an extension of himself. He's somewhere in here as a single grain of sand, somewhere little. For all we know, his real consciousness could be in his finger. Like, we don't really know. He can probably change where his consciousness is, you know? Similar to how comics is. So yeah, if we take that approach about him being a single grain of sand, like the main continuity comic version, that would make sense for his video game version to be like that too, I guess. Like, you can see some visuals on how he is, like making like literally a sandstorm here when he was approaching the battlefield. He can make many sand clones of himself to the point where the sand clones themselves can make different weapons out of their fists and such, which is all a part of him still. And they seem to be pretty strong to where they can kind of overwhelm Spider-Man, despite Spider-Man, we know that he can lift over 10 tons. So even though he can get ridiculously big like this, I guess you could say there's a singular consciousness somewhere in him. It's kind of hard to locate it though, but yeah. He can make smaller avatars of himself, sand clones. You get the idea. Like, we can literally see him make waves of hand. Like, you see him multiple arms to chase you with. Like, he's literally scary. Like, he can have waves of sand coming at you from this direction. Then have like a sand avatar coming from this direction, and then he's over here in his giant form. You know, this guy is scary. I don't see no reason why he shouldn't be able to fly, because he can make sand float and such, and I don't see no reason why he wouldn't be able to fly too, technically. Yeah. Well, just like the comics, his main weakness being water, of course. And I guess his other weakness was conveniently electricity. You know, that's the element of sand's weakness, I guess. So yeah, Miles was technically his kryptonite, one could say. Like, you can see his body literally being like crystals, one could say. Like, and I guess if you make him isolated from other sand, maybe that's another weakness he might have. I mean, how else are you going to lock this guy up? In his giant form, we can see that he can make different axes. Like, you can literally see him making a blade out of his hand. Like, this looks like a literal scythe he made. Like, he can do sand blast, pressure, super breath attacks, apparently, too. The scary part about Sandman, just like the normal Sandman in the comics, the video game run has a similar theme, is that he can kind of change tiers depending on how much sand he's around. Like, let's just be happy they didn't have to fight Sandman in this game in the Sahara Desert. Because right here it's literally stated he's getting bigger, and in this game it is confirmed that he can get stronger depending on the sand or how much sand is at his disposal. What happens if he gets all that sand? If he goes to a beach or something, he would get more powered up, and he did just get all that sand. I mean, you see how big he is right here. Like, just keep your eyes on him. But when he does get all that sand, just look what he's able to produce afterwards. Like, yeah, like a literal sandstorm with lightning and everything. Like, literally sand tornadoes that's lifting up ships, parts of buildings. So yeah, with his sand manipulation, he can definitely lift hundreds or even thousands of tons. Like, you literally see the tornadoes coming from Sandman. Like, he just made a tornado. Like, he just made multiple tornadoes. We just want to ignore that? You want to understand how strong he is? You got to understand how big he can get. When you're literally this big, he has to be as strong as his size. I mean, we literally see him lift up stuff in this big sand form he has here, for example. We see him throw fire trucks, even multiple cars he can throw and sling with one arm with ease. I mean, we literally see him throw big chunks of a building at the spider characters. We literally see him pick up and throw fire trucks. Meaning in this giant sand avatar form right off the gate, we just barely getting started and he already can lift at least 10 tons because fire trucks can weigh even 10 or even up to 20 tons. And this is nowhere near his max. He's literally slinging that junk like it's nothing. Tossing them like a baseball like here, you know? Like, here's another vehicle you see him just slinging trucks. Like, he just doing this easy. Here's a good way to get an understanding of his monstrous strength in this size. He can literally throw, like, spider characters through a building to the point where they keep on going to the next building, and their momentum keeps going up to where they got to slow themselves down. Literally threw him dang near close to halfway across the city. Guys, we literally see Sandman lift big chunks of an inside of a building with the water tank and just holds it up in the air with ease. But if we're being honest, the best way to understand his might is his sheer size. One could say however big he is a good way to understand how much he could lift. I mean, he's bigger than certain buildings. I mean, everything about him is enhanced, even his breath, to the point where he can blast this building like this. So it lets you know that, yeah, the bigger he gets, the stronger he does get. And he's one of them few beings I actually believe he got the strength advantage over Spider-Man in this giant state, at least. Because every time he grabs Spider-Man like this, Spider-Man can't just break out with his brute strength. He has to use water or something. Like right here, he's just stuck here to talk. Like, he just got to talk. And the crazy part is, if it's not enough water, just because you splash water on him still isn't an end-all be-all if he's in his giant state. Because right after the water, he just got swatted away like this. Spider-Man was getting handled to the point where Miles actually had to come and give him a helping hand to let you know how strong Sandman is. Like, this shot is perfect right here. Like, he's literally as tall as certain buildings. Not as tall as this one, but taller than this one. You see what I'm saying? Like, buildings can vary in weight. Like this website right here, for example, called Weight of Stuff. I'm not saying Sandman is as big as these things, but this is just to give you some perspective on the weight of different buildings. There's some buildings or towers that weigh 36,000 tons, like thousands of tons. There's some that weigh 750,000 tons. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you get the idea. Buildings can weigh at least over 100,000 tons. And based on shots like this, he looks like he probably would weigh at least over 50,000 or 10,000 or maybe 100,000 tons. Who really knows the real weight? I mean, just from the sheer size he can become by getting enough sand. On this particular scan, for example, when he has all this sand at his disposal, of course, he should be able to lift over 50,000 or even up to hundreds of thousands of tons or even more depending on more sand he gets. You see what I'm saying? Like, he's ridiculously strong with this size, and he can punch hard too. I would say, depending on his size, this should go for his striking force too when it comes to how hard he can just straight up hit. If he truly weighs the weight of an actual building, some buildings can weigh hundreds of thousands of tons, I would say he should be able to hit similar to what his weight is at this size. He gets more dangerous the bigger his size. That means he'll be able to hit with over hundreds of thousands of tons of force if we were to take that seriously when it comes to his sheer size. So in brute strength, I definitely think he would have Spider-Man beat in brute strength. They got to use their brain to beat him. You know what I mean? They got to use lightning, water, their brain to beat this guy. Okay, so there was this really tall building, and Sandman literally was able to grow big enough to where he was tall enough to reach the top from his height alone. Like, guys, I don't want to exaggerate that, but like, he's almost as wide as the crap too. Like, he's big. He can hit so hard to where he hits Miles through a building with a smack. We can also see occasions where he can just literally punch through the thick walls of the building with ease, causing this much damage to it. He can punch hard. He's heavy. causing all that mess to collapse. If he really wanted to, he could totally level the entire building with this punching power, this weight and mass he can produce. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's literally undeniable. I think we all agree. I don't think nobody's going to argue against this, that he can definitely level a building with his hits, especially in this giant sand mode. He can quake it, you know, collapse them, have them tilt to the side. All that good stuff is believable, right? Like, look at the buildings he did this to just by them passing by. Like, guys, he can level buildings with ease if he felt like it. I mean, the game itself, Spider-Man said there's a city-wide emergency, and they're talking about Sandman when they say city-wide emergency. Sandman himself even said in his memory he'll tear this city apart, you know. But yeah, you don't necessarily just have to worry about his punches. Yeah, he can punch hard with this super sand mode, of course, but he can also manipulate sand in a way to where it's like a storm. One could say he can produce blast power type stuff. Like, I don't even know how to calculate this, but with enough sand, he created like a sandstorm to where it started producing electricity. So one could say, can Sandman make lightning out of creating his own sandstorm or some crap? Like, you literally see it happen, and you literally see lightning. Like, bro, what in the living heck? Spider-Man even said it. Marko's storm is generating a lot of electricity. With his blast power, he's literally lifting chunks of buildings up, boats. Like, I'm not playing. You see the boats. He can literally make his own sand tornado. I mean, yeah, he did get defeated, but one could say the only reason he got defeated is because the storm that he created was generating lightning. Miles absorbed that same lightning that he was generating and then blasted it back at him, and so it was like he beat himself almost. But yeah, they still won, but they just had to use their brain. I ain't trying to take away their victory. Like, Peter and Spider-Man still won, but like, yo, but yeah, he's a very destructive character, but I guess somehow, even though he's in this little thing, he can't manipulate this sand over here, so that could be the weakness. Like, you know, as long as there ain't no sand up in there. But how strong do you think Sandman is in this universe? He's one of those characters where his threat level varies. Put this man in the Sahara Desert, and there's nothing Spider-Man and him probably will be able to do to him. His tier can change depending on how much sand he's around. You know what I mean? His power level varies. He's definitely a city-wide threat, just like Spider-Man stated. If their Sahara Desert is anything like us, imagine if Sandman had this much sand to pull from. Like, I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think Sandman could have gotten so powerful with enough sand from the Sahara Desert to grow as big as the city, or manipulate sand enough to manipulate a city size worth a pile of sand or something? This is just a theory, of course, but if he really could manipulate this much sand, he would be like a continental buster type character, or wiping out multiple cities with ease with sand manipulation type stuff. Like, if he can manipulate this much sand, that would be ridiculous. But what do you guys think? Your theories are more than welcome. What do you think his limits are? Do you think even if he was in the Sahara Desert, he still wouldn't be able to manipulate all that? I want to hear your thoughts about that. There's a lot to explore about Sandman, though. But before I get going, I gotta say thanks, guys, for the donations. It helps out a lot. Respect Sandman, especially in this universe. But I'll see you guys later. Respect Sandman. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.